We like to think of history as a staircase. Each century is a step upward, built firmly on the one beneath it. At the bottom of the stairs, we picture a shaggy, hunched figure clutching a flint spear. At the top, we see ourselves, satellites, silicon chips, and the ability to split the atom. It's a comforting linear narrative. It suggests that progress is inevitable and that we are the undisputed crown of creation. But what if history isn't a staircase? What if it's a wheel? Modern archaeology tells us that civilization, defined by agriculture, cities, and writing, began roughly 6,000 years ago in the fertile crescents of Mesopotamia. Before that, for nearly 200,000 years, anatomically modern humans were supposedly stagnant. We had the same brains we have today, the same capacity for love, grief, and complex engineering, but yet we are told we did nothing. We just wandered. We survived. We waited. Does that pass the smell test to you? If you took 1,000 babies today and put them in a wilderness, would it really take them 200 millennia to figure out how to stack a stone or plant a seed? Today, we are peeling back the frost. We are looking at the fingerprints of the old ones, a hypothetical global civilization that flourished during the Pleistocene and was wiped clean from the face of the earth by a cataclysm so violent that it became the Great Flood myth found in every single culture on the planet. This isn't just about ruins, it's about a lost chapter of the human soul. Sign 1, the ghost city of the Ice Age, Göbekli Tepe. If there is a smoking gun for a lost civilization, it is buried in the dusty hills of southeastern Turkey. For decades, Göbekli Tepe was dismissed as a medieval cemetery. It wasn't until 1994, when German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt took a closer look, that the timeline of human history was shattered. What he found was a series of massive, T-shaped limestone pillars, some standing nearly 20 feet tall and weighing up to 20 tons. They were arranged in perfect, concentric circles. And then came the carbon dating, 9,600 BCE. Let that number sink in. That is 11,600 years ago. To put that in perspective, Göbekli Tepe is as old to the Great Pyramid of Giza as the Great Pyramid is to your current iPhone. It is ancient beyond our capacity to measure ancient. According to the standard model of history, the people living in 9,000 BCE were hunter-gatherers. They didn't have pottery, and they didn't have metal tools. They certainly didn't have a centralized government or an army of engineers. Yet, here is a site that required the coordination of hundreds of workers, an understanding of geometry, and a sophisticated supply chain to feed the laborers. But it's the carvings that tell the real story. These aren't crude stick figures. They are high relief, 3D sculptures of lions, boars, gazelles, and snakes. The pillars themselves are stylized human forms, hands folded over bellies, wearing belts and loincloths. And then there's the mystery of the burial. Göbekli Tepe wasn't destroyed by an enemy. It was intentionally buried. Around 8,000 BCE, for reasons we cannot fathom, the people who used this site filled it in with hundreds of tons of refuse and dirt, creating an artificial hill. They time-capsuled it. Why? Were they trying to hide it? Or were they preserving it because they knew a dark age was coming? When you find a cathedral in the middle of a desert where no cities exist, you don't assume the nomads built it. You assume the city is gone and only the temple remains. Sign 2, the underwater Ziggurat, the Yonaguni monument. If a global civilization existed during the Ice Age, we shouldn't be looking for it in the forests or the plains. We should be looking under the sea. During the last glacial maximum, sea levels were roughly 400 feet lower than they are today. Millions of square miles of prime coastal real estate, the places where 80% of modern humans live today, were dry land. When the ice melted, the Great Flood wasn't a metaphor, and it was a 400-foot rise in the water table that happened with terrifying speed. Off the coast of the Ryukyu Islands in Japan, lying in the clear turquoise waters of Yonaguni, sits a structure that defies the ocean's logic. It is a massive, monolithic formation, 150 meters long and 25 meters high. It looks like a stepped pyramid. It features flat terraces, straight edges, and what appear to be two massive pillars standing guard at an entrance. There is a road that circles the base. There are right-angle corners so sharp they look like they were cut with a laser. Geologists are in a civil war over Yonaguni. The skeptics say it's a natural formation, sandstone that has fractured along parallel planes. And sure, nature can produce some strange geometry. But nature doesn't usually produce a trench that follows the perimeter of a structure. Nature doesn't produce post holes carved into the rock that look suspiciously like they were meant to hold wooden supports. The most haunting feature? A rock carved into the shape of a human face, similar to the moai of Easter Island, staring up through the dark water. If Yonaguni is man-made, it had to be carved when it was above sea level. That puts its construction at least 10,000 to 12,000 years ago. It suggests a maritime culture that spanned the Pacific, a culture that viewed the ocean not as a barrier, but as a highway. If you saw the ruins of Manhattan from the bottom of the Atlantic in 10,000 years, would you call it a natural rock formation? Or would you realize you were looking at a ghost? Choose sign 3, the machined ruins of the Altiplano, Puma Punku, high in the Andes Mountains of Bolivia, at an altitude where the air is thin and the sun burns your skin, lies Puma Punku. It is part of the Tiwanaku complex, and it is arguably the most technically baffling site on the planet. While Göbekli Tepe is a mystery of time, Puma Punku is a mystery of method. The site is littered with H blocks, massive blocks of red sandstone and andesite. Andesite is one of the hardest stones on Earth. To cut it, you need something even harder, diamond-tipped tools or high-speed obsidian saws. Yet, the cuts in these stones are perfectly straight. They are machined. There are internal 90-degree angles that are so crisp they look like they were poured into a mold. There are tiny, perfectly spaced drill holes that run in a straight line across the stone. The Inca, who lived in this region much later, claimed they didn't build it. They told the Spanish conquistadors that the city was built by the gods long before they arrived. They viewed it as a sacred ruin of a previous world. Mainstream archaeology suggests Puma Punku was built around 500 or 600 CE. But there's a problem. The engineering required to move these 130-ton blocks and lock them together with the precision of a Swiss watch simply didn't exist in South America at that time. Not in the way we understand it. If you look at Puma Punku from above, it doesn't look like a temple. It looks like a factory. It looks like a modular construction site that was hit by a massive seismic force and tossed across the landscape. Some researchers have pointed to the sediment layers at the site, suggesting it was once hit by a massive flood from Lake Titicaca, a flood that occurred at the end of the last ice age. If Puma Punku is 12,000 years old, it means our ancestors weren't just gathering berries. They were masters of lithic technology that we can barely replicate today. Sign 4, the maps of the pre-glacial world. In 1929, a map was discovered in the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul. It belonged to an Ottoman admiral and cartographer named Piri Reis, dated 1513. On its own, it's a beautiful piece of 16th century art. But when scholars looked closer, they began to sweat. The map shows the western coast of Africa, the eastern coast of South America, and, most controversially, the northern coast of Antarctica. Here is the problem. Antarctica wasn't officially discovered until 1820, and the coastline shown on the Piri Reis map isn't the coastline we see today. It's the coastline under the ice. In 1960, Professor Charles Hapgood of Keene College sent a request to the US Air Force to verify the map. The response was chilling. The Air Force concluded that the lower portion of the map accurately depicted the Queen Maud land coast of Antarctica as it would appear without its ice cap. Piri Reis wrote in his notes that he didn't survey this himself. He said he compiled the map from older source maps, some dating back to the time of Alexander the Great, and others even older. This suggests that someone, thousands of years before the 16th century, had mapped the entire planet. And they had the mathematics to understand longitude, something we didn't master until the late 1700s. They had the ships to navigate the treacherous Southern Ocean, and they did it when Antarctica was still partially green. If a global civilization existed, they would have been master navigators. They would have known the shape of the Earth, and when the cataclysm came, their maps were the only things that survived, passed down through the centuries like sacred relics, until they ended up on the desk of an Ottoman admiral. Sign 5. The fingerprints of the fire, the Younger Dryas. If all this evidence is real, then where did they go? How do you lose a whole world? The answer lies in the dirt. It's called the black mat. If you dig down into the earth at over 50 sites across North America, Europe, and Asia, you will find a distinct dark layer of sediment. It dates precisely to 12,800 years ago. This is the beginning of a period called the Younger Dryas. Before this layer, the world was warming up. The Ice Age was ending. Then, in a geological heartbeat, the temperature plummeted. The world was plunged back into a deep, brutal freeze that lasted 1,200 years. What caused it? Scientists have found nanodiamonds, magnetic spherules, and high levels of iridium in that black mat layer. These aren't Earth-grown materials. They are the debris of a comet. The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis suggests that a massive comet, possibly a fragment of a larger body, entered the atmosphere and broke apart. It struck the North American and European ice sheets. Imagine a piece of ice 2 miles thick. But now imagine a comet the size of a city hitting it at 30,000 miles per hour. The ice didn't just melt, it flashed into steam. It triggered mega floods so large they would have made the Mississippi River look like a leaky faucet. These floods surged into the Atlantic, shut down the ocean currents, and threw the planet into a chaotic reset. Any civilization living on the coasts, the hubs of trade and culture, would have been erased in a single afternoon. No ruins would be left, only silt and stories. We think we are so permanent. We think our concrete and our steel will last forever. But the Younger Dryas is a reminder that the Earth is a violent, changing home. We aren't the first tenants. We're just the ones who moved in after the previous family's house burned down. Yet the epilogue, the message in the stone. So where does that leave us? If we accept that we aren't the first modern civilization, it changes everything. It means we are a species with amnesia. We are like an orphan who finds a beautiful, complex machine in the attic and has no idea how it works or who built it. We see the echoes of this lost world in our myths, the story of Atlantis, the flood of Noah, the Manu of Hindu tradition. These aren't just fairy tales. They are eyewitness accounts passed down through the dark age of the Younger Dryas, a warning from our ancestors. They are telling us that we have been high before, and we have fallen. Perhaps the real reason we are so obsessed with these ruins, with Göbekli Tepe and Puma Punku, isn't just curiosity, it's recognition. As we are looking at our own potential. We are looking at a mirror cracked by time and trying to piece together the face that looks back at us. We weren't the first, but maybe if we learn from the silence of the stones, we won't have to be the last.